What is up, everybody? Welcome to the 100th episode of the Bearded Tog podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Let's reflect and engage on where we've been, where we're at, and where we're headed together during this crazy time. Let's make this happen together. Here we go. So when I first started the Bearded Tog, I honestly just felt late. I felt like it was something I had been, yearning for, right? Longing for to do for probably a year or two or more, and just was like, that was my first big experience with imposter syndrome when I first started the podcast. And it took some good friends and some good community, some good mentors around me who said, Adam, no one is going to speak like you about this, and there are people that want to hear it in the way that you are going to say it. And that was the best way about thinking about imposter syndrome. And if you've listened to episode 11 that we did on imposter syndrome, I would encourage you to listen to that. But it's the idea that you guys, if you're listening to this right now, you, for some odd reason, want to hear me talk. And that is mind-boggling to me. And I think for most of it, too, you obviously want to hear the guests talk. And that's part of the strategy. And I love the guests that we've had on. So honestly, I just want to say, first off, thank you. If you're listening to this, you are a listener, and that means so much to me. If you're subscribed to the podcast, that means so much to me. That is incredible that you took your time out of your day, out of the flurry of podcasts, to listen to this one. At the time when I started the Bearded Tog podcast, 2017, 2018, there were not a lot of photo podcasts that were real. And I think over the past few years, my journey has really been a desire to have authentic conversation between experts, whether that's me or guests or two guests talking to each other. And I've wanted it to be beneficial for you guys. I've always wanted the podcast to be sort of a handbook for entrepreneurs on their journey. And so there's been an element, where other podcasts you'll go to and the formula is essentially like, hey, grow your Instagram following with the help of this big guests who also has an Instagram following's advice. And I think it's cool. And we did that. We did that for a while. And after a while, I just wanted something that was a little bit more real. I wanted to go back to the roots of like asking our favorite photographers, our favorite heroes, our favorite product designers, how did they do what they do? How did they overcome the obstacles that they did? And what is the way they think? Because I think all of us think differently. And so I'm like, if you can latch on to somebody you've never heard before, or somebody who has a different perspective, or somebody who's in the same place you're at, then that can benefit your business and benefit your life, especially right now during this crazy time. So for me, that's always been my goal. And you could tell the last 20 episodes or so, we've kind of shifted, back to our roots and kind of having an authentic take. And you know what? If that means that we're going to have less clickbaity titles and we're going to have less attention grabbing titles, then that's okay. Because I want, when anybody presses play, I want it to be real, especially right now, realism, being real is worth more than so much than it's ever been before, right? And that's what you guys need. That's what I need during this time. So one, I just want to say thank you again. Two, if you are looking for a community of people who feel like you and aren't better than you or behind you, but are even with you and equal with you and ready to share and be open and there's no secrets, I would encourage you to join the Bearded Tog community. We have a little Facebook group online, and of course it's online, duh. And I would just love for you to come join. We do free workshops in there all the time. So obviously on May 5th, we're doing a free SEO workshop. Somebody asked me how much it costs. I said, it's free. All it costs is for you to show up. So definitely come check that out. That's May 5th. But you're listening to this before then, and you should just sign up now. Go watch our past workshops on how to generate leads. So head to Facebook and go join the Bearded Tog Facebook group. Or you can go to togfb.com and you can just be sent right there. This podcast has opened up so many doors for me, and it's all and thanks to you guys. And it's just really, really cool. I've gotten to meet some of my heroes, favorite photographers, favorite entrepreneurs. It's given me a way to show people, hey, I'd like to talk and I'd like to have a conversation about how you do things. And that's been really cool. And just to step in the gap for photographers who are like, hey, I need a real take on this. I want to know what happened, or I want to know what I should do, or like, what's going on. And that has just been really, really cool. And one of my favorite things too is that it's opened up opportunities for me to, speak at conferences and do workshops, and even started hosting our own workshops, right? Like I've never hosted an in-person workshop, by myself. And we've done a bunch of online ones, which has been really, really cool. We had probably over 100 people at our last one, which is really sweet. And I just think that is really, really cool. When I was thinking about the 100th episode and what to do for it, do we get a big guest and we make it this big celebration? Do we go live? What do we do? Do we do a giveaway? And at this time, there wasn't anything that felt perfect. And, I think all of our guests are awesome. For some of us on the podcast, it was their first podcast they've ever been on. And so for me, that means a lot, is that they would take their time and make the Bearded Tog their first podcast experience. And I think, too, that's the goal of having guests on who are at your level. If you're listening to this, and you're like, Adam, I only have 643 Instagram followers, then we've had guests who've had that many Instagram followers on there. And we have guests who had, 1 million Instagram followers on. And I think that's really cool. And I think the perspective between both of those is what's valuable. And so I've always been asking these guests lots of questions and kind of diving into their stories and, being inquisitive and being annoying maybe at some point, asking them questions that maybe they don't want to know, but we always want to hear. And so I reached out to a few of my favorite guests. I reached out to a lot, and we asked a few of them to ask me a question. And so I've never heard any of these questions, so I have no idea what they're going to do. And I promise this is an edited podcast, but I want to give a real take. And so the guests are going to actually ask their questions to me here as they're listening, and I'm going to answer them live, without any editing. You're going to get my real take. And I think that'll be cool. And we have a really cool announcement at the end of the podcast that I would encourage you to listen for, that will benefit you greatly and just really open up a lot of doors for you that I think will be really cool. And I think just help during this time when you're just like, what can I be working on? What do I need to do? And I think it'll be really cool. So definitely hang out, check out that announcement at the end of the podcast. But I have no idea what these questions are, so I'm going to answer them pretty close to live. And I think that'll be really cool. And then after those few questions, we've got a few quick announcements at the end of the podcast. And then we'll just go from there. And that'll be really cool, and we'll be done. And I would encourage you guys to come join the Facebook group, and we'll hang out. But here are some of your favorite guests and their questions.
Hey, Adam, this is Evie Rupp from the Heart University and the Heart and Hustle podcast. My question for you would be, based on all of your years of business and running a podcast, what do you feel has been the number one lesson that you have learned?
That is a great one. I love Evie Rupp. She was on the podcast a few episodes ago, and she's just really, really great. So what's the biggest thing I've learned over my years? I feel like an old guy, but I've only been full-time for 5.5 years. So I've been doing this for almost 10. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned over the past few years is just the idea of running an authentic business and being fulfilled. And that's now my highest goal. And it's shifted a lot. When I first started my business and first started being a photographer, my goal was to take cool photos and was to make people happy with those cool photos. And I think now my direction is just flipped, where I want to make people happy. I want to bring them joy. Mace Photography's mission statement, I talk about it all the time, is to eliminate fear, create connection between those who are divided, and help people become fulfilled in who they are and who they're becoming. And to me, that is just my life goal. And, when I talk to mentees all the time, and, our first thing we do is we just say, who are you and why do you exist? And we help them find their why, right? And it's never related to photography. We want it to be your life mission, your life goal. And for me, after a lot of work, and having a mentor, and that would be my first advice. Have a mentor, guys, or listen to a podcast consistently. But it's just been really, really fruitful to come to a place now where I don't have imposter syndrome. My business is authentically me, and our values, and even our teammates. We have a few associates now and have a corporate photographer on the team, podcast manager as well. And all of those people share and are excited by the mission that Mace Photography shares, which I think is really cool. And it's just been so great. The impact and relationship that I've had with some couples is bigger than ever. And, I still get normal, quote unquote, normal clients who are like, hey, Adam had a great personality. We like their photos. We want to hire him. But the coolest thing is those couples that are like, Adam, I really resonated with what you talked about on your site. I really resonated with, we play a video after they fill out the form just so they kind of get a sense of what we're into. And so that's just been really, really cool. And so how does that apply to actually like advice or learning is, I would just say that you need to keep digging on who you are and why do you exist and what do you want in the world? What do you want to do in the world? Because it's not like I think I've said this before. I think have passport, will travel is going to make a really bad tombstone. I just don't think that's why you're living. If you're listening to this, I don't think that's not what makes you come alive. That's not what makes you thrive. Traveling might. There's something in traveling that might make you come alive. There's something in, the kinds of couples that you want to serve or the kinds of clients that you want to serve. But it's like, what do you want to do in the world? Who do you want to be? And I think finding that is the most important thing ever. It takes a lot of work, a lot of tears. I've cried. All my mentees have cried. It's super deep, but it's so worth it. And then it answers all the questions. What does my portfolio need to look like? What do I say on my website? What do I put in Instagram captions? If you already know why you exist and your purpose, what you have to say to the world is already going to exude out of that purpose. And that's been really, really cool for me. So this might be a long answer, it might be a short answer, but that's just where I would be. So thanks, Evie Rupp. Go check her out. Thank you so much for asking that question.
Hi, I am Joe Tobiasen. I am a wedding and nonprofit photographer based in Seattle, Washington. And my question is, what is something that a guest once said that you find yourself quoting all the time in the rest of your life?
That's really good. I love that. Joe Tobiasen, everybody. He's incredible. Got to listen to his past episode, of course. He actually, after our episode, so I don't think there's ever been a quote that has resonated with me that I can think of, at least at this time. But there has been actions from guests that have resonated with me. And I think, in addition, when guests share the episode, it means so much. When anybody shares the episode, it just means so much. It's insane. And what's cool about this podcast is everybody who's listening right now, I don't know all of you who are listening. Every once in a while, somebody will pop through the grapevine or pop out at a workshop or a conference, or I even went to a workshop where I was attending as an attendee, and somebody said, "Hey, I listened to your podcast," and I was like, "Whoa, that is insane! Please, I need to go in a room by myself." It was very weird, but very cool. I'm just a kid from small town raised by a single mom, kicked out of college, right? But my favorite thing that somebody has done is actually Joe's gift of kindness. So after a episode that we recorded with him, we had talked that I'd never shot a frame of film, and just kind of being funny about it because he's really into film, and a lot of the other guests we've had on were into it. And this guy mailed back his microphone, because we send out mics to the guests now, most of the time, and he mailed it back with a film camera inside to play with, and just said, "Hey, send this back whenever you fill the role and I'll develop it for you." And I just thought that was so sweet and generous. And it just showed, it came from a place of kindness that I could never, ever expect or think about. And it's been really great. I still have that camera. We're still playing with it, even during this kind of crazy coronavirus time. I shot a lot of my motorcycle with it. And it's been great. So it's just such an act of kindness that I thought was really intentional, and that resonated with me. So I'm not trying to shout out Joe, but Joe was the man. Joe did the thing that I think was really cool. The other one, I think, and he's going to be a guest or have a question in a few seconds, is Joey Wright, who shoots mostly models. He just says his tagline is that he shoots models so his kids don't have to, and that just makes me blush, and I think it's hilarious. So gotta love Joey, both Joeys basically right there. So Joe Tobiasen, love that guy.
Dude, 100 episodes. That's freaking crazy. I hope you realize how huge of an achievement that is. That is huge, man. Really, really huge. So lots of congratulations. So my question for you is, well, I actually have two questions for you. One is, what made you want to do a podcast to begin with? How did you decide that this is something you're going to do? And my second question is, how the heck did you persevere through 100 episodes? What motivated you to keep going, and how did you keep yourself on track? Because that's a big commitment. So those are my two questions. Oh, and by the way, I should probably introduce myself. My name is Max Sadek, and I really enjoyed being on your podcast a few months ago and chatting all about Facebook and Instagram ads.
Wow. I love Max. He's such a great guy. We've got some stuff in the works coming out, hopefully later this year or in 2021, which we're really, really pumped about. But yeah. So how did I decide I wanted to start a podcast? And then how did I persevere through, doing so many episodes? I decided to start a podcast because that was just the medium that I liked. I didn't like seeing myself on video, and I'm getting better at that to try and, for Patreon and live workshops, of course. But I love podcasts. I used to work for Apple. I had the original iPod back in 2003, so that's 17 years ago. That makes me feel old as dog stuff. But I just loved podcasts and listening to them. Podcasts actually are a huge influence on how I learned photography. So there used to be a podcast called Adorama TV, and it was a video podcast, and it was like before YouTube was big, and you could just download these videos to your iPod and watch them all the time. And so me and my buddy Denny, who actually would be a really cool guest, we would just watch these videos all the time, and I would watch them late at night and just kind of keep learning, hustling. Like, I wanted to know everything. I was very hungry, and that was really cool. And I still have that hunger to learn. And so that's why I just thought podcasts were really cool. And still to this day, like, I look at my listening stats, and I listen to probably like 20 to 30 hours of podcasts a week. And I just like it. It's my news. It's my music. It's my everything. And it's such an authentic way to kind of hear a real take. Hopefully, if you're able to have a real take, sometimes, and even we've had guests on here who give their polished, selves on, which is totally fine. But I really love to just have that conversation and just like, have it be real. And so I love that. And it's just a cool way to hear commentary. That's what I think podcasts are, is like, oh, what commentators do you like? Like, oh, I like Adam, or I like Nathan, or I like Max, or I like whatever. And so I think that is the really cool side of podcasting. Secondly, Max, which I wonder if the guests will actually listen to this, but yeah, 100 episodes, man. So when I first started, the goal was just to get episodes out the door, and we missed our scheduling. It's hard because, for every episode we've had, guys, we reach out to guests, we come up with ideas, and there's been a lot of solo episodes too, which I think were just valuable things to deliver. But most of the time we try to have a guest, and the guests we've had are disproportionately less than the guests that we've asked for. And so I've probably reached out to 300 or 400 photographers. I even hired somebody to help me reach out and tell so many people. And a lot of people said no, or didn't get back to us, or just weren't into it, and, thought they were too big or too cool, or maybe they just didn't have enough time. And that's totally fine. And so, the biggest thing when we first started was to have a consistent schedule, but oftentimes, we didn't have an episode for those weeks. And so at the beginning, there were a lot of solo episodes, and then we kind of got our workflow down, and I had some help from a friend, and we were able to have a little bit more consistency. But, the biggest thing was just to 10x our outreach to guests. And, for every 10 that we asked, we probably get 4 to reply, 3 to reply, and then, at least for me, I only remember the episodes where like everybody sounded great, right? Like, they said something awesome, but also like, I want the quality of the audio to be great. And so, it's been a fun journey. But I mean, for me, my favorite podcasts have, 300, 400, 500 episodes. Some of them have 1,000 episodes. And I think now, just like any commentator, as long as this, medium stays alive, I'm going to do this. And I think, my goal is to help others and give a perspective that if I can do it, then anybody can. And so I've just kind of used that as my goal mission. And like I said earlier, as I've like found a clear mission, and so the Bearded Tog would be the third section of the Mesa Photography mission statement, which is to help people become fulfilled in who they are and who they're becoming. That's what the Bearded Tog is. And so as I can, do this podcast and get insight and bring people into a comfortable, relatable space, because a podcast is one-to-one, right? It's me talking to you guys right now. I even say guys, but it's just you, unless you're listening with friends, which would be weird. But that's where I think the mission, like that's my mission, and that's what I want to do. And I actually want to start other podcasts talking about other stuff, but just need guests, and it takes a lot of work. But I'd love to have a tech podcast just because I love technology. But long story short, that is where I land on how I kind of persevered and got through so many episodes, and some episodes that I regret doing, honestly, or they just didn't go the way I wanted them to, or, you think you know somebody, and then later on you actually have certain people that don't fit that mission. I that are just not that great, and but yeah, at the same time, you don't know what's going on with them, and but that's just tough. And so yeah, we've had to push through, and every week we put out an episode and say, all right, here we go. And we've gotten better though at if the episode doesn't go well, or you think the audio is bad, or something technical to glitchy, I'll just tell the guests and be like, hey, we should redo this. And that's been terrifying when you get like an Amy Vitale on with 1 million followers who's traveling to Kenya every month, which now, it would be a great time for podcasting. But yeah, so that's just a little bit of inside baseball for you guys. But that's kind of where we're at. And we want to make this good. We want to make this high quality for people, both the content and the delivery. So Max, thank you so much for that. It means a lot. And yeah, that would be my answer.
Hey, Adam, this is Joey Wright, swimwear photographer out of Miami, Florida. Congrats on the 100th episode. And my question for you is, as a wedding photographer, what is your most memorable moment while shooting a wedding? And I'm kind of hoping you'll give us one that we'll get a laugh out of. And I can tell you, when I first started, I did some weddings and had a bridesmaid flash my camera on the dance floor while there were little kids standing right in front of me watching. It was bad. She was wasted. Anyways, I'm sure you've got stories. Please give us one. Thanks, man. Congrats.
So that is traumatizing, man. Joey, loved your episode. Loved hanging out. We could have talked for hours. Yeah, embarrassing stories or crazy moments. So, for me, the number one thing I always tell people, and it's gotten less weird over the years, it's something I'm not, I'm just not ashamed about anymore, is that I used to split my pants at weddings probably like 2 or 3 times a year. So over the course of like 5, 6, 7 years, that's like 30 pants. I'm bad at math. That's like 20 pants. And 20 pairs of pants, if you will. And because a pant is each one, or pant leg. And yeah, so that used to happen all the time, and at first it was embarrassing, and I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And now, I think because of my personality, or it's just not that big a deal, right? Like it doesn't show up in photos, right? It's just me. And obviously still try to look nice, but it just feels silly. And so there's a lot of weddings where during dinner I'm like sitting there with my ripped pants, and it's always in the worst location. Like it's in the like, oh, you're not allowed to bend down anymore location. And, I'm just ordering another pair on Amazon or something. And that's probably part of the problem too. Chicken Egg is ordering pants from Amazon and they don't fit. And, wedding fashion is a complicated thing for a lot of people, including myself, even after doing this for a long time. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. And then, other things, I had a wedding once where the family was really sarcastic. And I thought it was hilarious at first. And then the sarcasm just flipped a switch and it started getting really mean. And people were like on the brink of tears. And it was the one situation where it was just awkward. And I had never dealt with that. And I wasn't really sure how to handle it. Like, do you just awkwardly laugh? But then if you awkwardly laugh and the person who's being hurt is your client, then are you laughing at them? And so I'm like, how does that work? And, it just gets really nitty gritty. So if you're in your brain, you're just thinking like, oh, do I want to please the parents who probably paid for this, or the couple, or they're my client? And so that was kind of messy. And then I think now, after doing this 200 weddings, I don't know what it is. But at our weddings, my biggest thing I tell my couples and everybody there is like, I encourage them to be their fullest selves, 100%, whatever that means. Like, we'll take photos of them being their 100%, their fullest selves, and we'll handle together if anything inappropriate happens, or that they don't want being shown publicly. And sometimes it's inappropriate stuff, or sometimes, especially in DC, we just have like, politicians or famous people as clients, and, they don't want to be online. And so, but I've had plenty of weddings now where, shirts come off. It's hot in the summer. You're on the sand doing a beach wedding or something, or it's just hot on the dance floor, and people start taking off less and less clothing. And then that got to be normal. And then now it's coming back. People are just having a very exciting time at weddings. And I think it's probably going to go even more if we come back from this coronavirus thing. And so yeah, that's always kind of funny. And you definitely blush for the first few seconds and you're just like, what is going on? This is my job. And then you just embrace it. And you say, these people, sometimes with the help of inebriation, are being their truest self, being their best selves, being being who they feel like they're able to be. And that at a wedding is my favorite thing, when just people can just be whoever they want to be, right? Like the person who's like, I don't really dance, but they dance alone a lot, and they maybe they love music, and the dance floor is like when they make it happen. They're like, what, I'm just going to be myself. I'm going to be me, and so I just think that's really cool. So that's kind of a different take on it, but yeah, that's my vibe. And yeah, we've seen a few crazy things, and just stuff happens at weddings. It is what it is.
Hey Adam, it's Pat Fury. I'm a self-proclaimed editorial wedding photographer based in Philadelphia who works alongside my wife Claire. We've both been in the wedding business full-time since 2008. I was the guest on episode 74 last year talking about achieving financial independence as a #artist, and my question for you is twofold. In the past year, what have you personally found to be a business tip that isn't commonly parroted by other photographers? I'm looking for a hidden business advice gem here that you've personally benefited from over the past year. And on the flip side of that, what over the years have you found that you focus your time on in a way that feels incorrect now that you might have known better? Things that you've spent time on that you wish you maybe didn't spend as much time on, or things that you maybe didn't find effective. Love the podcast, and I'm grateful for your friendship. Here's to a killer 2020 for everyone listening. Thanks, Adam.
Man, that is a good question. I love Pat. I mean, we're friends, and we've been hanging out a lot more the past year or two since we got to meet in person. But I've been a big fan for years. Yeah. So trying to answer this live, right, guys? So something that I've learned in business that other people have not been parroting as much as possible. I mean, authenticity. It sounds so silly, but maybe that's not the right word, but I just when I meet with my mentees, a lot of them, it is a course correction, a turn. And for me, it was a turn, where I finding yourself and who you are and the work that you want to create that feels and looks like you, at least to a high percentage, right? Like, I think we're always going to take family photos. We're always going to take maybe a handful of details, even just a tiny bit. And, obviously we want to get published. So, sometimes people care about that. But I think the types of clients, the types of weddings, the types of environments that you want to be in are determined by you. And in the past, I wish I had been more cutthroat about what I showed on online for my marketing. And, because every blog, every photo, everything you put on Instagram, every single thing is marketing. And it's easy to be like, oh, I didn't know people looked at that blog post. But if that's the reason people hire you, and that wasn't one of your favorite weddings, or, it was outside and you don't like shooting outside, or vice versa, or whatever it is, or even a deeper connection than that, then it's just going to be not as fulfilling. And I think that is my big goal. And so I now am a little bit more cutthroat with what I put online, what I show on the website. And I used to feel bad about that. And then I realized that I've only had one client ever say, hey, why weren't we on the blog? And it wasn't even them, it was, their mom, which is understandable, right? They're saying are they not good enough? And they are. But I think what I've realized now is that my blog is, our sites are advertising. That's what it is. It's not a place where, every client gets featured. I've never shown my corporate work on my site ever. And so, yeah. So that, I would say that is be more cutthroat. If you have a blog post, even if you're going to post a blog, but you have 20 photos and you're like, I think all of these are good. Chop it down to 8 and I'd rather just have all strong images and representation that feels and looks like me and looks like you guys, than weakening it because you feel like you have to, right? Or if you don't like wedding party photos, or the wedding party photos weren't that good, or they weren't exciting, or they weren't different, don't show them. Or just know what you want to be and what you want to show. And that's what you'll attract. And we've seen people who were so good at niching down over the past 2 to 5 years who really exploded with growth. I do think of like Lindsay Roman and Evie Rupp, who said, you know what, like, this is my niche. This is what I'm going to do. And they just crushed it. And they just went out and killed it. Even like Maddie May, right? Adventure Instead. Like these huge, huge photographers now who just said, I'm going to go niche down. And, one of the things they talked to Ben Heish about on his episode was, man, it looks like you're just shooting really cool outdoor weddings in Seattle. And he said, well, I still shoot church weddings. I just don't show them. And it was like mind-boggling, like, what? That's crazy, but it's like, yeah, like, and you can still have a fulfilling, incredible experience with these couples, and it just happened to be the church where they grew up, or they just happened to be, something different. And if you're a story-based photographer, then you don't care, and you can kind of roll with that. But at the same time, like, yeah, just be more selective. Like every photo you put online is an advertisement or a billboard, and so that would just be my advice to myself. And then something I spent too much time on and wish I didn't spend more on. Or whatever that phrase is, I guess. I think I wish I spent more time on vendor relationships when I first started. And I think this is might be a guy thing, but I was in the cool photos side of thing, and I only wanted my relationship to be with a couple, and that was really cool. But I was missing out on a lot of relationships and friendships of other wedding vendors in the industry and other wedding photographers who we could just be friends. I didn't have to worry about competition, and I could be generous and be like, hey, I'd love to give you this lead, or, do you want to start a lead referral club? And so I wish I spent more time on that. I only, I want to say 2016, 2017, really dove into, relationships, building a referral network. A lot of that was help of Mike Morby, who was on the podcast. He's been on I think he's our biggest guest, or he's been on the most times, and then he's been on 0 other podcasts. So maybe he's been on 1, but he's the man. And so he really helped me from that perspective of just like, there are relationships out there and you need to dive in and embrace them. And so that was really, really cool. I wish I spent more time on that earlier. Honestly, because I think we could be bigger, better, faster, stronger, more leads now than where we're at now, which is cool. I'm thankful for where we're at now. But it would be great to be even higher. I feel like we started late. We'll put it that way. So yeah, Pat, love that question. That was a doozy, man. These are insanely good.
Hey, Adam, Nathan Holritz here from Photographers Edit and the Boca Podcast, chiming in from the beautiful coast of San Diego. Curious what you like to do for fun. If you're not going to be in front of your computer or on your phone working, what's the thing that you do first? That thing that brings a smile to your face, that enables you to feel maybe like you can escape a little bit. What is that favorite activity?
Okay, Nathan. Okay, I like it. Nathan Holritz, man, what a great guy. Has his own podcast called the Boca Podcast, and he's I think out of the photography podcasts I've listened to, I think Nathan is the best interviewer. Honestly, like the dudes, I think they're in the 300 episodes or something by now, and his questions and the way that he shows that he knows guests are just incredible. I applaud them. They're super, super, super good. So, love the Boca Podcast, and what a badass name, right? Like, wish I could have thought of that. I had the stupid Bearded Tog title, and he's got the Boca Podcast. Like, man, everybody loves Boca, right? At least I hope people do. Anyway, and they had the seagulls playing in the background. I'm not even a noise clip that is episode. We're gonna let the seagulls in there. What do I like to do for fun? Yeah. This is the hard thing about being an entrepreneur, as some of you guys know, and Nathan probably knows too, is that this thing we get to do our passion. And so oftentimes what I've realized is that like I can keep working, and there are times when you feel burnt out and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. And there are times when you feel alive and you just like do an 18-hour straight thing, you stay up till 4 a.m. And I've had to put boundaries on myself recently to make that not happen. But that has been the most incredible thing, is that like, you get to love what you do and get to work on what you do. And that is a, blessing and a curse, because I can answer emails and I can be excited and be like, oh yeah, I'm crushing emails. And then there are times when, that's just not what you should be doing, right? And you should have boundaries and be like, hey, that is still work. And it's still stealing or it's using up a resource of you that you have to keep in check, which I need to dive deeper into that. But, and then you need things that fill you up, that are fun. And, I think for me, oftentimes that is the wedding day, right? Or spending time with a couple, or just making clients happy. And that provides a lot of fuel for the rest of the time. But as far as like actually fun, I've played guitar since I was 10, so love playing guitar. I think we're going to do a few more. I think I want to start like doing some Facebook Lives of just me jamming out on songs and stuff like that. I think that'd be really fun. So I love guitar, I love music, used to be in a few bands, and even got to tour just a tiny bit, which is really, really cool. And then I have a motorcycle, so I love that. That's like my big hobby. My parents both rode. If you're into motorcycles, I used to have a Harley 1200 Nightster, all black, of course. And then now I have a BMW. I betrayed my family. They were like, "Oh, you got the BMW, man? What are you doing?" And they don't talk exactly like that, but it was definitely a weird thing to give up the Harley lifestyle. So now I have a BMW 1250 GS. It's like an adventure bike, and it can carry a lot of stuff. So I actually rode it. I drove it to an engagement shoot the other day because it could carry all my gear, which was so cool. And it was terrifying, but it was cool. And yeah, so love my motorcycle. We're trying to get my wife more involved with that. Obviously with coronavirus, things are a little bit crazy right now. We want to get her on the back, want to go do some more adventures, or just like, we live close to the coast, to the East Coast. So I want to go like eat crabs, see my parents, go on little vacations, go camping. And we could do all that on that bike, which I think is really cool. And just adds a little sense of adventure. Like you can do the same stuff in the car, but it's still different. And then what's really cool about it too is that like, the weather can be different. It can be 100-degree day, but it only feels like 75 on the bike, which is really fun. And yeah, so I love that. Other than that, I'm just a big technology nerd. Used to work for Apple, and so I love just gadgets and just researching and workflow, diving into that kind of stuff. And then TV shows. I love TV and movies. Like they inspire me a lot, and just story and dialogue and that kind of stuff. I'm not a hoity-toity movie nerd. Like I don't know enough to be cool, if you will, but I just like movies, and like seeing like, oh, I really like this actress. Like I'm growing into that, and so that's been really cool to just be like, oh, I want to watch every Christian Bale movie, or oh, I want to watch every Mark Wahlberg movie, or I really love anything by A24. And so love all their productions. So I watch a lot of that stuff. Fair, who's coming on next week. We love A24. We talked about that when we met. And so that's really cool. And yeah, so I those are mostly what I do for fun. Those three things, I would say. During the coronavirus time, we're trying to get into more cooking, which is fun. I mean, I love eating. So we made some banana bread, of course, the other night, which is cool. But we didn't have a banana pan. So we made it in a baking pan that was like smaller. And it was actually really good because it was like chunkier and awesome. And so, man, answering these lives, guys, this is the first take. Every episode is actually me answering, so I either apologize or you guys like this. So but yeah, that's what I like to do for fun. And yeah, play guitar, have fun, and working on my guitars, trying to grow into doing more work on them, and the motorcycle, of course. And yeah, so great question, Nathan. Absolutely love you guys, and love the Boca podcast.
Hey Adam, Hope Taylor here. I am so excited about this episode. I think this is going to be so much fun. And what I want to know, the question I have for you is, what is your most embarrassing or awkward podcast moment? I feel like I have so many awkward and embarrassing moments from shoots and wedding days. I want to hear what your most embarrassing podcast moment is.
Hope Taylor, absolutely miss you. Love you. This is incredible to have you on here. Yeah. So, one, your episode was so good. And I just want to say it meant the world to me that you took a chance on us and said yes. And it just meant a lot. I remember meeting you or seeing you speak. You were 19, 20 maybe, and I was 25, 26. And I just thought, wow, this girl is still a teenager and crushing it. And your story was just so inspirational of like skipping college and hustling. And it still inspires me to this day. You're an incredible photographer, incredible person, and I've loved, we've kind of got to see you grow up a little bit from 19 to I think you're in your mid-20s now, and you're just incredible. So thank you for asking. I don't have a particular embarrassing podcast moment. I don't think 100 episodes, man. That just means they're all going to happen soon, or at least maybe we like edit them out. I think when we first started, we used to not try and curse that much, and then now we curse a lot. We try to just let people do whatever they want. Yeah, I don't think I have an embarrassing moment. If we did, we've probably cutting it out. No, I was kidding. It's been great. I think the most embarrassing thing is usually, when I can't pronounce a guest's name right, and I have to ask them, or I say it wrong and then they say, hey, it's this. That happens every once in a while for guests that I've just never heard their name of, because we have a lot of guests who've never been on podcasts, right? So you're like, how do we say this? But yeah, I think that's the most embarrassing part, or there's been a few times when I've asked questions that I didn't frame them well, and the guests luckily, could take over and just knew what I was trying to say. But that was embarrassing to me because I don't want to come off awkward or whatever. And then, when we're asking the questions, I don't re-record me re-asking a question or re-record me, talking. So that's been really the biggest thing, I think, as far as embarrassment goes or whatever like that. But yeah, so absolutely. Thank you so much, Hope. Man, what an incredible way to celebrate our 100th episode, guys. I hope you like that. Just a few little insights from other guests that we've had. I would encourage you to go listen to their episodes. I'm going to pop their episodes into the show notes, and those are going to be listenable on our next announcement, which is our new website. We finally have our own website for the Bearded Tog. It's always been like an offshoot of Mesa Photography and my brand, but we wanted to have something separate just for clarity and fun, and they're two different brands. And so it's just, we're super excited. It's very basic right now. You can go listen to every episode ever on the podcast, and you can go listen. You can see the show notes. So if there are little links and giveaways and secret Bearded Tog deals that guests have given or have done, then those are in those show notes as well, which is really cool. And lots of links to just really fun stuff. So that's just the beardedtog.com. Or if you're feeling frisky, you can just type in beardedtog.com if you want to be more efficient. And, but that's our super exciting announcement that I think is really cool. And then the other thing, I want to make sure, of course, go out to the Facebook group, togfb.com, join the community. It's free. We're going to do a free workshop on SEO. I say free a lot because somebody today asked me how much it was, and I was like, it's free. Go watch that. That's on May 5th, 7 p.m. EST. And then thirdly, if you guys want to support me and want to support another business during this time, the number one way would be to join Patreon. I'm going to start putting that link back into things. It's $10 a month. That's it. And what you guys want to hear is going to be determined by the patrons and what you guys want to know about. So we've got a lot of plans in there. I'm actually about to drop some SEO tools that I use in there. And then we're going to drop some other videos, some workflow videos, backup, how do you import in the Lightroom, that kind of stuff in there. And then we're going to do a video on finding your why. So lots of fun stuff in the Patreon. You can get a link to that at patreon.com/thebeardedtog, or you, of course, can go to the new website, thebeardedtog.com, and we'll link that as well. So guys, I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. If there's a free way and you want to support us, that would be to leave a 5-star review on iTunes, guys. Like, that means the world. It really helps the show. So definitely go leave a 5-star review. That would be incredible. And I'm going to give you guys just a little sneak peek since you've made it to the end. Some of our upcoming guests. Episodes already recorded. They're coming out. Fer Waristi, aka Fernando Waristi, super cool guy. Nessa Kessinger from Nessa K Photography, absolutely incredible. Dan Newman, the digital content head for Matchroom Boxing, super guy, just got featured on Complex, which is insane. And then Paul Wu is coming on, which is really cool. And yeah, and then we've got a lot of good episodes coming out. We're scheduled out, ready to go, and really, really excited. So last thing, I want to say this again. Thank you. That's all that means. All this episode, everything I do for you guys, this it costs money to run this podcast, and we barely make any money off of it. And that's not to make you sad or feel guilty or anything like that, but like, we do this for you, and the guests that come on do this for you, and we're so thankful for you. So if you're listening, I love you. I appreciate you. I'm here for you. If there's anything you ever need, let me know, and we'll get you a resource or help you out as much as I possibly can, or send you someplace that will get you the answer. It means so much that you listen to this episode. Have a wonderful day, guys, and keep being awesome.